In the latest release of the media element, you can now set the metadata for the media that you're playing. You can control it from the lock screen and you can play the media in the background. I'm going to show you everything you need to know in this video. By now, you probably already know about the media element, which is part of the .NET MAUI community toolkit. And with this amazing control, you can play audio, you can play video, you can pause, play, do all these events, you can get the duration, all kinds of crazy stuff. I have another video about that. I highly recommend that you go check that one out. But with this release, version 4, you can do even more amazing stuff. Features added in this release all kind of like work together. First, you can add the metadata to your media that's playing. So you can set the artwork, you can set the artist, you can set the title, all those kinds of things. And then those will show up in kind of like your lock screen, or whenever you pull down like the control center on your device, you will see the little artwork right there with the title and the artist. And you can stop playing it there, you can pause it, you can skip ahead, you can do all these kinds of things. And that will then automatically be triggered inside of your app as well. And then kind of like as a result of that, you can also now play media in the background. So whenever your app goes to the background, your media will just continue playing and you can control it from the control center, from your lock screen of your device, and see all that metadata there. I'm going to show you on a couple of platforms and how to implement it right here, right now. Let's head over to Visual Studio. So here we are in Visual Studio, and just like always, I'm going to start from scratch. This is just a new .NET MAUI project. So the first thing I'm going to do is install the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, actually the media element, because it's a separate package. So go over to your Solution Explorer, right-click on your project and do Manage NuGet Packages. Of course, you can do this from Visual Studio Code on your Mac with every IDE that you want, or a code editor, or whatever you have. The process might be a little bit different, but this is how to do it on Visual Studio. And we're going to search for, let's just search for media element right here, and it should pop right up. Here we go, Community Toolkit.maui.media element. You want to make sure, if you want to have the functionality that I'm going to show you in this video, to have at least version 4.0.0. Install that one. We're going to have to accept the license agreement, get a list of like all the dependencies right here. And that's also a reason why it's a separate package. You can see like for Android, usually it brings in a couple of dependencies right here, and we don't want to force all those dependencies on everyone if you're not using the media element, right? So that's the reason why we keep it as a separate package. Then we will get a couple of instructions. So what we need to do here to initialize this, you want to copy this line right here, use MAUI Community Toolkit media element. So let's copy that one. Go over to our MAUI program.cs, and we're going to paste that line. You can also see we have like red squigglies, warning, because we have to add that line, right? We added that little helper so that you do not forget. So let's just paste that in here, and it will bring automatically the using community toolkit.maui right here above, or add it if it doesn't do that for you, just add it manually. Okay, boom. We got that. What else? README, scroll. XAML usage, you want to add that XML namespace for the toolkit. Seems useful, so let's just copy that. Close the README, close the MAUI program right here, and close the NuGet browser as well. We don't need that. And we're back at our main page.xaml. Now I'm going to remove all of the stuff right here. So the image, the label, the button, don't need any of that. And I'm going to add the media element in here. So the first thing I want to do in this content page node, I want to add that toolkit, XML and S toolkit, and we have this fancy URL that will bring in like all the namespaces for the toolkit with just this one URL, instead of like having to specify multiple with all kinds of different things. And now I can just do toolkit media element, and that's how you implement the media element. Simple as that. Now, of course, I want to show you this with some cool media, and there is this cool band. They're from Boston in the United States, and I just discovered them. They're amazing. There's 2 songs on Spotify and I think on iTunes and all these kinds of cool things. They're called Big Raph. If you go look into it and you're a little bit into .NET MAUI, then someone in there might look familiar. They're totally amazing. I tried to get a t-shirt, but those are like sold out. So, you know, just go follow them before they, you know, break through and become very, very big. So go check that out. I'm going to use their song and their artwork for this thing. The URL that you're going to see, I'm going to remove it afterwards because I don't want to promote piracy here. But I'm going to show you this right here. So let's just do that. Let's just set the source here. And I hosted that on my own domain. So here we go, because, you know, it's on Spotify and all this kind of stuff, but it might be hard to reach it from there. So I just got the MP3 from the actual artist. Another Tomorrow, great song from Big Raph. There we go, .mp3. Okay, we got that. And then that was like, this is already possible, right? You can do this with the media element today. What we can do now is set the metadata. So metadata artist, artwork URL, and title. It has to be a URL. So we can set the artist, which is Big Raph, right? So there we go. Metadata title. Let's do the title, which is Another Tomorrow, one of their great songs. They're also performed live. If you're from around Boston, super, super cool. I have to go see them live, which is pretty amazing. And then we can do metadata artwork URL. So I have the same URL, so let's just copy this, but then with .jpg, so that I have the artwork here as well. And that should start playing. Let's do autoplay as well, which is already something existing. Should autoplay to true so that it starts playing automatically. Now, on Windows, you don't need to do anything else. In a minute here, I will pull up the documentation for the media element, which has everything that you need to know as well. But let's just run it on Windows from right here, and let's see what is going on. So if I deploy this to Windows, it's actually going to show up here in my little, I don't know even how to call this, control center of all these things. I should get myself out of the way right here, and you will see it here in a minute when I fix these build errors. So I removed a bunch of stuff from my XAML, so I don't have any counter button anymore, so I should remove the references right here. Let's just do that and try again, and then whenever it comes up, you will see the media element start playing automatically because I said should autoplay to true. It will start playing that song that I got from the URL right there, and it will show up in the control center here in Windows. So let me just get myself out of the way right here, and then whenever it comes up here, there we go. We can see it starts playing, right? We can see the little counter going. No? Okay, so I think there we go. It starts playing. You can see the duration right here. Maybe I was a little bit too fast. And then if I open the control center here at the down right, you can see Big Raph, Another Tomorrow with our little artwork right here. So that is super cool, right? I think I'm right underneath it. Yeah, there we go. So you can see this showing up here on Windows, and I can just pause it right here, and you can see that it has effect on my application right there. And when I do the opposite as well, if I start playing it here again, you can see that the changes come up here as well, right? So super duper cool. Now, if we want to do this on other platforms as well, there is a little bit of more work to do, especially on Android. So let's start with Android first, get that out of the way. So if we pull up the media element documentation right here, I will put the link down in the show notes, in the comments. And there is a lot of documentation on the media element, right? But we want to show this. Ooh, who's that guy? That looks familiar. All right, so there's a lot of documentation here, and actually, I think, where are we? Platform-specific initialization. That was what I was looking for. And for Windows, no setup is required. For Android, a little bit of setup required. Why? Because Android uses these services, the foreground services, to actually make it possible to play media in the background while it's a foreground service. Don't even try to understand, just accept that. So there we go. We want to have a resizable activity and launch mode. Okay, that's interesting. So let's make this resizable activity and a launch mode, single task, which probably has to do with like bringing the app back to the front again. So let's just go to our platforms, Android, main activity right here, and we already have the main launcher, the launch mode. We already have that in here, right? And I think we wanted to make this, what was it? Single task, I think. I'll check that in a minute. And then add that other one that I copied as well. Resizable activity is true. You can just add that right here, and then we got that. Okay, so let me double check single task if that was the one we wanted. Single task. Yeah, okay. Then in the Android manifest, in the application tag, we need to add some stuff as well. We need to add this service. This is a reference to that service that will play the media in kind of like the background and enables the control from the control center right there. So let's just add that in our application tag, go back to Visual Studio, Solution Explorer, go to the Android manifest. I'm going to right click that one and do open with, and then the XML editor, so that we get this thing instead of the graphical editor, because that's not going to help us right now. Find the application node right here, and then inside of that, we're going to paste this little bit that I got from here. Okay, so far so good. And let's see what else we need to do. Add the following permissions. So we're here in this Android manifest. We also need a bunch of permissions for this, which seems, maybe a lot, but if you look at it, it kind of like makes sense. So let's see, we got the access network state. We already got that one, so I can remove it so don't duplicate it. Get the external storage, right, read and write for that. The foreground service, right, that's because the media needs to be playing in the background. Notifications, because the way kind of like Android works for these things is like it will pop a notification, it will look like a notification, so we should be able to do that. Foreground service, media playback, right? So really specify what that foreground service is going to do, and media content control, so that we can control it from the controls that we will see in a little bit right here. Then scroll down here, here's an example of the required settings. So we got all the settings right here, and that's all that we need to do. Just to give you a little peek on iOS and macOS right here, much easier, right? Just one entry in the info plist, and that's that. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. Let's start with Android first. Okay, so we got that all in place. Let's just see if we can run the same thing on Android. So I'm going to switch over this thing right here, Android emulators, Pixel 5, I already got it running, so it should deploy pretty fast. And now we're going to deploy the same application, the same code, and we will see it running actually on Android. And there is kind of like, while this is deploying, let me just talk you through these things. There is a little bit of a difference. I'm going to open an issue for this. I already talked to James, actually James, who is contributing a lot for the Media Element to the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So thank you so much, James. And I've been talking to him like, hey, can we also show this metadata on like the actual player inside of the app? Because for Windows, you saw it's not there. For iOS, we will see in a minute, it's not there either, but for Android, it is now showing. So the metadata right now is for kind of like the lock screen controls and for the control center, but not really for inside the app, which kind of sucks because it would be nice to show it there as well. So we're going to work on that, but let me show you how it works for Android here first. Okay, the app is deployed. So here is the Android emulator, and here is our app coming up. And the debugger just connected. That's why you saw the little dialog flickering right there. And then whenever we actually get into the application, we will see the media element right here. You see that we get kind of like, hey, do you want to do these notifications? Because that's what I said. Android works with these notifications right here. Actually, you can see I didn't set really a height. So it kind of like does a weird thing with the height right now, but you can see that we have the artwork right here. It is playing, it is loading, it's doing all these things. And when I pull down the control center right here, you can see that I got it right here as well. And I can pause it, I can play it again. There is this weird thing where the volume button keeps popping up. I already fixed that in a PR, so that should be gone with the next release. But you can see, and I can drag this forward, and it will set the new position for that. And if I go back here, you can see that the position is now updated as well. And I can pause it here, and you can see that it pauses here as well. So this all kind of like works together, super, super cool. So this also works on Android. Boom, we got that. And now if I stop it, and if I go to my iOS thing right here, so let's go to Platforms, iOS, and right-click on the info plist, open with, and also do the XML text editor here. Go back to the documentation page, get the little key right here, and this is the exact same thing for Mac Catalyst. I think there's a little bit more. You can see that right here with Bluetooth and audio and network usage, because it can also do things inside of your network. You can now also automatically kind of like AirPlay to devices on your network and do all that kind of stuff. So that's why that's coming up. That might also be triggering the Bluetooth and the network discovery dialog that you see on iOS for all of this. So if you see that, that's probably because why this is happening right here. So let's just go back to Visual Studio, add this. I'm not going to show you for macOS right now. I will make sure that the code is available in the sample repository that I attached to this video. Link is going to be in the video description so that you can look over it as well there. But, you know, it's also in the documentation. So, background modes, audio right here, we've got that. And then I actually deployed it to my iOS device earlier. So let me bring that up here for a second. I've got this nice app, which is called Mirror 2, to actually cast my device right here. So that should connect here, and you can see my device. And you can see that the application is deployed. It looks more or less similar to, you know, what we've just seen on Windows and Android, but now how it should look like on iOS. And again, here you see the QuickTime logo. I would really love to see the artwork here. So I'm going to add an issue for that. And if you want to see it as well, maybe you know how to implement it for iOS and Windows, please open that pull request. So now when I start playing this, right, you can see that the little counter starts going again. The description, the duration and the position is going to update. And then whenever I pull down kind of like the control center right here in the top right, you can see another tomorrow, big graph. It shows now a little bit weird thingy because I'm actually mirroring this to the app right there, else you would see the little artwork right there. And if I kind of like lock the device, I'm not sure if this is going to work actually. Yeah, there it is. So you can see the artist, you can see the title, and you can see the artwork, right? So that is all specified from our metadata. Now playing in the background, I can pause it, I can play it again, and then if I go back into the app, you can see that this does it. And if I update the position right here and go back here, you can see that the position is updated too. So this is all that you need to have an amazing media element completely integrated into the operating system inside of your .NET MAUI app with Media Element. Of course, everything that I showed you here also works for videos, but I showed it with audio here because that probably makes the most sense to play in the background. So you can set all that metadata, but also for videos, and it will show up the same way. You can control it the same way. Everything is right there. If you find any bugs, please let us know on the repository, of course. And if you want to have more features, also let us know on the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit repository. Check out Big Graph. They're going to make it big as well. I'm sure of it. You've heard it here first. So definitely go check out that. The video for Media Element with more details is right here. A video from Big Graph, they have a YouTube channel as well. Go subscribe there, is right here, and I'll be seeing you for my next one. So just close your eyes, wake up to